Hi, I'm Janet Deneath, founder and director of the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival. You are about to hear one of our highlight conversations recorded live for our 2022 festival, which explored the role of the written word in upholding humanity's values and freedoms through our festival theme, Mamayu Hayuning Bawana, Uniting Humanity. So please settle in and let the magic of our 19th festival continue.
Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here. I'm really excited to be moderating this chat about something that's so close to the heart of all of us here on stage today. My name's Lauren Ziegler. I'm a writer and editor in the music industry based in Sydney, Australia. I was a freelance writer for years working across a bunch of local and international publications and ran my own publication for 5 years as well. Thank you. Music is something that I've connected to for as long as I can remember. It's been so much of what has defined me personally, culturally, socially, and professionally. And the same can be said of our three incredible panelists here today. So let me introduce each of them before we get started. Meita Kasim began her writing career in the 90s as a creative scriptwriter with Hard Rock FM Jakarta, also working as a music director, radio DJ, and show producer. She moved to Bali and continued her career as a radio DJ and program director before becoming a full-time magazine writer. After moving to Hong Kong in 2011, she worked as a part-time DJ and a language teacher. And when she returned to Bali 3 years later, she wrote her debut novel, Out of Order, The Tales of the Urban Misfits, inspired by her own coming-of-age story as a young woman living in Jakarta who discovers rock and punk while still navigating school, family expectations, and conservative religious ideals. She now lives in Vienna, Austria, where she moved just before the pandemic, and just a couple months ago joined a band over there called the Periscopes. And you can also attend Meita's book launch for Out of Order tomorrow at 4 p.m. at Non Frasser Gallery. Sally Breen is the author of an incredible grunge memoir, The Casuals, released in 2011. It takes us into her life, family, and the music scene of Brisbane in Australia during the 80s and 90s. She's the winner of the Varuna HarperCollins Manuscript Prize. Her 2013 novel, Atomic City, was shortlisted for the People's Choice Queensland Book of the Year Award, and her short-form work has been published internationally. Sally's also a senior lecturer in creative writing at Griffith University and is the executive director of Asia Pacific Writers and Translators. Robi Supritanyo is a musician, activist, writer, and farmer who lives right here in Ubud. He's the founder of punk band Navicula, who will be playing later tonight at 10 p.m, just over here, by the way. And he brings activism and music together, spreading messages about environmental and political issues here in Indonesia, including the palm oil industry and deforestation. Navicula has toured the globe, collaborated with organisations like Greenpeace, and have won several national and international awards along the way. Robi also created and narrated Plastic Island, a documentary about the collaborative movement to reduce the reliance on single-use plastics here in Indonesia. Let's all give a big round of applause for our panellists today. So, music that resonates the most with us tends to be music that tells or creates stories. A melody or a lyric can take us on a journey. It can teach us something new. It feels like it really understands us. And it can open our eyes to a new experience or a new world. It can also be the soundtrack to our own personal stories. I'm sure many of us here can think of a particular song or an artist, an event, or even a particular lyric that meant so much to us at a particular point in time that every time we hear it, it just takes us back there, or it takes on this deeply personal and profound meaning. It's all in the storytelling and the story making, and that's when music can come to define us. So I want to start the discussion by going back to where it all began for all of us. I think for people who feel a really deep connection to music, it often starts when we're young, and there's often that moment or an event or a person or a specific, even a guitar riff or something like that that just sets us off on a path. It just clicks. For me, I was 12 years old. I have the most vivid memory sitting on the end of my bed when I was at my parents' house, someone had given me a CD of Frog Stomp by Silverchair and just put it on this old hunched over this Casio CD player. And as soon as I heard that opening bass line of the first song, Israel Sun, something just clicked in my head, and I just knew that that was sort of going to be a really big, important thing in my life. So I'd love to go around and ask each of you to share that thing. When or what made you realize that music was going to be a big part of your lives? Sally, maybe you can go first.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's a hard question in a way, but I guess for me, my father was a singer. He was what you would call a crooner. So I grew up being subjected to Nat King Cole, Matt Monro, Frank Sinatra on repeat. But the tragedy of my father's career was that he was also a lifesaver, and one day in the ocean, he swallowed 2 blue bottles, and it wrecked his voice. So he could never really sing again. And every Friday night, he would play the albums. He'd have one too many beers, and he'd play the albums. And so there was this kind of tragic poeticism to music to me, watching my dad get the records out and kind of mourn his life, you know. And I still love that music. I didn't when I was 13, but I love it now. And I used to go out and have what I call a stereo war with him, because you couldn't sleep because, you know, Frank Sinatra was playing at 2 a.m. on, you know, like, and so I'd say, oh God, or whatever. So I'd go out and I'd sit with him and I'd say, can I play a song now? And he'd go, okay. And, you know, I was very young, and so I'd play Cyndi Lauper or Madonna, and he'd say, can't sing, can't sing, can't sing. And then I got older, and then I'd put on Nick Cave or Joy Division, and he'd say, can sing, but off key. And I was like, yeah, it's a little off key, but, you know. And so I think that's why I loved music like Joy Division stuff, because there was that sort of tragic sadness in it. And I think it was ingrained in me.
Thank you. Meita, how about you?
Well, there is a similarity because I also found that moment through my father, and I was a young Muslim woman back then, and a little girl, and we had the Beatles played because my father was a big fan of the Beatles, my late father, on repeat when we do road trips to anywhere. And he was a very serious man. He was a doctor that took 2 specialists, pediatric and anesthesia. And he was a very serious man. And he was a man of a few words. And one time, I was very little, I found an old photo of him, and he was playing an instrument, and he went on stage in a band that plays covers of Elvis Costello, Beatles, wearing suits with big bass. And I asked him, were you in the band? And he was like, yeah, no. He didn't want to talk about it because maybe at one point in his life, he has to make a choice where to go. So he went for a more serious path, but that picture stuck in my head, and that made me realize that I kind of want to do the path that he didn't do. So that's how I ended up obsessed and wanting to be in a band. And then I did, yes.
I love that. I love that. Taking
my
the other
conservative
path
father turns out to had a band back then that he didn't want to, that he put as a secret more or less.
I've similarly found out only a few years ago that my father had been like a disco DJ in the 70s. You would not pick that at all right now. It's hilarious. Amazing. Robi, how about you?
I started playing guitars like when I was in the 13 years old. Hey. Okay. I have a dream. I mean, it's like I love music since I was baby, I think. But the trigger that I want to make a band actually when I saw Smells Like Teen Spirit on TV. Like, and before of that's like I have like lots of glam rock 80s poster like Motley Crue, Skid Row in my all the guitar shredder in my room. But at the time there is a feeling of a gate. So they're the gods, I'm the worshipper. Like, but when Nirvana play on TV, it's like, this is like my friend from next door play the guitar. Like, I can do that. And simple, effective, but efficient. So, okay, I want to make band like them. So that's, I think, on the 1992 is the trigger. So I start the band. And then growing up, making my bands that was on the 1993, and then I start to make my own band, Navicula, on the 1996. And we're growing, and I see like the value in the music is not just about entertainment, but also is like other potential. It seems like cooking, like when we a chef, the first thing that we do to be a good chef is to make a delicious food, right? But after that, when we growing adult, we get mature, and then it's not just enough delicious, but also have nutritious. And then again, it's like the source have to be responsible and sustainable from the direct. So it's adding the value, and then and then I'm enjoying that. It's like this music is what I love, and then adding the social and environmental value is what I care. So it's combining what I love and what I care. So
amazing, thank you. I think like hearing all of that and knowing where we've all come from and what we've done with our careers and our lives since then, when we feel so connected to music that it reaches a point that we can actually say that's what defines us, it comes with a sense of community and a sense of belonging, whether it's a connection that we have internally to an artist, whether it's being part of a particular scene or a cause. It's like a chosen family. It can bring us solace, it brings escape, it gives us purpose, it gives us a place to belong. All three of you have fought so much for that community in your own ways, doing whatever you can, risking so much, taking huge leaps of faith in the name of rock and roll. Meita, your story brings us into a hidden world of punk and rock in 90s Jakarta. Out of Order is fiction, but it's based very heavily on your own experiences. As the book goes on, Siggy, the main character, becomes more and more engaged with the local music scene. She's in a band, she's playing gigs, she's playing festivals, she's on radio, she's got friends in the community, she's really, really a part of it. But throughout it all, she's still grappling with these conservative, religious family ideals, struggling with studying at school, expectations placed on her to be a wife, to be a mother in future. Near the end of the book, sorry, I'm going to give a little spoiler. There's an excerpt from a journal about Siggy declaring that she's an official misfit. She says she should have learnt to bake or sew, but she joined a punk band instead. And she's never felt as elated as she did right then. For Siggy and yourself, by extension, there's these two communities here, one that was supposed to define you and one that ultimately did. What was it like to have to balance them both?
It's really difficult. It's really difficult to strike a balance between what was expected of you as a young Indonesian Muslim girl, and what I was able to see, the opportunities that I was able to see from the love of music. So it was a hard dance every day. Every moment, every second, especially being a female musician. And the underground music movement just started in the 90s back then, and it was, of course, male-dominated, and the band, it was all girls, and it was probably really, really rare. From the heavy metal scene, there was one band back then that no one really knew, but they were actually the one that breaks the door to the underground music scene, and they were called, in the book, they were called The Lavatory. And when I saw them performing in the metal scene, despite all the heckling, despite all the catcalling and derogatory comments, that made me realize that I can also do it. But yeah, it's really difficult dance, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did it anyway.
But
and you found
yeah,
that other community, and you found that other
yeah.
thing to define
And
you.
also, we were quite inspired by the lavatory, and we wanted to continue and hold that torch. But we decided on a different genre. So we were the first all-girl punk band in the Jakarta music scene, and the lavatory was the first all-girl all-girl
metal
band. Yeah.
Taking off all the rock and roll
there
genres.
first,
I
and
love
then
that.
we continued, and then, but it was really small. The players are, you can count with the female-fronted bands back then in the underground music scene is really, really limited.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sally, in the casuals, you take us into your own upbringing, 80s and 90s Brisbane, and as it goes on, the focus shifts from your family to your chosen family and community, one that's centered on music, sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole shebang. And later on in the book, we see you beginning to come into your own and finding writing as well. And I'd love if you could speak on that, reflecting on your career in the years since. What were some of those crucial moments or experiences that enabled you to build on that love and that community that you found and essentially create an entire career out of that for yourself?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I think I came at my career, I'm now an academic, but I think I learned how to write from the back of album covers. You know, I mean...
So many of us did.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Dylan, you know, The Cure, you know, like looking at the lyrics and I'd copy them out by hand. You know, I had a notebook where I'd write down all my favorite lyrics and, you know, again, it's about the poetry of it. But yeah, I mean, that time in the 90s, Brisbane was an incredible underground scene. And it was like all the kids in the suburbs at the kind of tail end of Gen X. We were just disenfranchised with everything. The baby boomers had a hold on culture, and we just thought, well, we're never going to get anywhere. We're never going to get a job, so let's get high and fucking dance, you know? Like, I mean, that was what it was about, you know? And it was wonderful. It was a slacker culture, but it was also renegade. You know, and people kind of criticized the 90s culture for being slacker, but it was protest. It was a protest of its own because, like Nirvana said, this is a denial. We're denying what you're giving us, you know? And it was just an incredible sense of that kind of renegade punk attitude, you know? And you'd walk down the Queen Street Mall in Brisbane and there'd be goths and punks and, you know, techno heads in their little shorts and whatever. You know, like there was just so many different subcultures. And you walk down the Queen Street Mall now and it's all, you know, it's all pretty bland, you know. And I loved that sense of expression, you know. And I think I was always a renegade, always wanting to shake a cage. And that's where I found it, yeah.
I love what you said about it being a protest and
it was,
about that renegade. That's something that any of us who found a connection with a particular scene, a particular genre can totally relate to. There's protest in being a part of it. There's protest. The party itself can be the protest.
Yes.
So often, yeah. I love that. Robi, you use your own music with Navicula as a means for activism, sharing messages about environmental causes, collaborating with artists and organizations around the world. That's a community in itself, the artists and the activists. You've made that fight so much of what defines you, and you've played such a huge role within an activist community in Indonesia and beyond. From your experiences, what makes a community united through music and activism so powerful?
I mean, for Indonesia, actually, when we're talking about the environmental issue, I mean, Indonesia has that. So many, you know, so many. Indonesia is like maybe like one top 3 largest contributor for the gas emission because of the deforestation, you know, for example. Or Jena Jambek, like 6 or 7 years ago, issue a statement like Indonesia is the second largest country in the world that contributing plastic pollution to the ocean, for example, like that. So actually, even Bali, Bali, it's like the industry, tourism industry is getting like what is booming, and then anywhere in the world is you have the parallel consequences that any industry, not only tourism, if it's high, and then the environmental impact also become the consequence. I mean, it's like this is a common thing here. And then I think because of these things that happen, it will become a natural reaction for the people or the art scene in Indonesia react about the problem that happen in our surround, right? And also this actually, maybe Navicula, I believe also every generation has their own revolution, has their own issue. And then actually we just continue what is happened from our previous generation. For example, it's like, we can say maybe Indonesia, the literacy, minat, what is minat? Minat baca, the literacy, enthusiasm. Yes, that one. It's low, right?
Low.
But
Right.
the information and knowledge transfer maybe mostly from verbal or from art. Even like a difficult religion in our history, like a Muslim, Hindu, everything spread through the islands, like a 17,000 island in Indonesia, through a shadow puppet or theater. So, it's find a way to transfer the knowledge. And then this is a kind like a culture. And then me that love rock and roll, I see like a Rage Against the Machine doing like a protest like that one, or Pearl Jam, or I mean, it's like a big action like on the 70s, like Joni Mitchell gain a fund for Greenpeace on the 70s. So it's actually the same thing. And then this is kind of like this natural reaction is, and also because Bali or Indonesia is very community-based, and this has become the culture, right? So it's so easy to make any community, empowering community here. So I think, so it's just natural thing. And then, it works.
Your mic is
fallen down.
Check.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, it's
there you are.
Yeah, the community influence everything that you do. So it's really, and you can be a part of many different communities. So,
So so it's become.
It's impossible for an Indonesian to have no community.
Yeah.
It's just ingrained in the society. Yeah.
So this kind of things combination is become natural.
Yeah.
And so to be able to bring that community of punk and of music together with the community of activism and spread that message.
It becomes a language.
Exactly.
You know, that everyone, as you say, cuts across boundaries.
Yes.
Music becomes a language that many people can connect to, despite their background, or it's a uniting force in that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Music, football.
Yeah.
Music and football.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I think a big so much of learning about your story and your music as well, and Meita, yours also, is there's so much, even specifically about Indonesia, that I've learnt just from this, that maybe even in Australia, which is not that far away, we wouldn't have really heard about otherwise. And that's on two levels here. That's all the environmental issues that you talk about, and then even the punk scene and the rock scene that both of you are part of and that you talk about in Out of Order. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't otherwise know that kind of scene is there.
We came from different locations, though. He's basically the father of grunge in Bali, and I came from the scene in Jakarta.
Yeah.
But same time, right? Same era. Yeah.
I love that. Moving on from that, Meita, we were talking yesterday, and you told me about how when you were a young girl starting this all-female punk band of your own, you had no idea that existed anywhere else.
No.
There wasn't the internet, there wasn't access. At that time, you'd never heard of the female-fronted punk bands in the UK. You'd never heard of the Riot Girl movement in the US.
No,
You thought you
no.
were the first person doing that, and that is,
Yeah.
and you did it, and that's so incredible. And Siggy goes on the same journey, inspired by your own. You set out to do something that you only realised, like relatively recently, that you weren't the first person to do that.
Yes.
How was that experience for you growing up? And how much of that did you channel into Siggy's story in Out of Order?
Yeah, when I started the band back then, there weren't any female-fronted band or all-girls band that I get to listen because, yeah, like you said, there is no internet back then. So I didn't know that there was female punk movement, which happened already 20 years ago in the source of the place, like in the UK or in the US. So it felt quite lonely. I'm the only one here, So but then it gets better because then the alternative scene starts.
Yeah.
The alternative scene start, and then I get to have more reference of female fronted bands like No Doubt or Hole, and that's, but the punk bands from the 70s, the bands like X-Ray Specs,
Susie and the Banshees,
the Slits,
Bikini
Susie
Kill.
and the Banshees. I didn't get the chance to hear them. And now it's totally different for the young generation. Nowadays, all you have to do is just log in and you get all the informations. Yeah, so...
It's pretty amazing that without knowing any of that, you still went and did that.
Yeah, my band
It's,
back then
it's even
played
more
cover.
amazing that you did that thinking that you were that first person to do that. Yeah.
Not really, but yeah, back then I thought that I was alone, but it turns out that it started already 20 years ago. So, okay, I'm not that special. But then we moved genre. We didn't stay, my band didn't stay too long at the punk scene. Then we changed a little bit the genre to post-punk and Britpop and alternative from the US. So like we played cover of Suede and Elastica and so many, Sonic Youth, all that, yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to speak a little bit more now about the way that music has gone on to influence our lives and our careers. Sally, you've released books, short stories, you've worked in various roles across the music industry. We were talking about the work you did with Big Day Out, all of that. And today you are an academic and you lecture on creative writing. For young music fans out there who might think that they want to start writing about music, where should they begin? What are some of the essentials for getting started?
Well, as you know, being a music journalist, the space too is shrinking.
It's a very different world.
But I think where it begins is passion.
Yeah.
Passion for the form, and yeah, I mean, even when I was working for a promoter. And basically, I was like chasing after Blink 182 and trying to get them to put their socks on and get on the plane. I still was passionate. When you get to that stage where it becomes too sceney, or people are doing it because they think it's cool. I think that it really goes back to the will and the passion, But finding an avenue is difficult, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the really cool publications that were covering music in a decent way are no longer around, and so it's harder to get some time.
It's harder to get paid for it too.
And harder to get paid for it, yeah. But I mean, I don't teach music writing at Griffith, but I think what we do is instill passion for the word, and however you want to apply that, we'd encourage that. But yeah, it's a tough gig. I mean, but writing's a tough gig, yeah, all the time, no matter what you're writing about, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. I mean, you used to write for, who were you writing for?
a bunch of different publications.
Yeah, that no longer exists.
Most of them, almost none of them exist anymore.
Yeah.
As anyone who has been in the freelance or music writing world would know, especially coming out of the pandemic when, everyone who was ever writing about live music or doing anything like that, it's been tough for the entire industry, and for writers in particular, freelancers, it's not been an easy time.
Yeah, and yet it's such a beautiful form, music writing.
Yeah.
And
it's so
fun.
unique. It's fun.
amazing. And in Australia, we had the Rock and Roll Writers Festival. I mean, sign me up. And it only lasted 2 years, but it was fantastic, and it was really focused on music writing, and can you imagine the parties? Yeah, it was pretty good.
Exactly. Thank you. Robi, I've got a question for you. It's sort of based on what you were saying before. I know that there's some people who might ask, how can a song make a difference? How can a song become something that actually changes and has a message that becomes a vessel for actual change? How do we make that connection? I'd love to know, based on your experiences, what is it about music that allows us to send those messages that actually truly resonate, to change minds and to make a difference, especially when we're talking about massive environmental and political issues?
Yeah. Music is like quite unique, yeah. I believe in art, but music has has a special place in the art. It's because it's such an ancient vibe on it. Seems like the baby, when we have babies, I got that when I have kid, yeah. And then I realized how my baby's panic and give it to the mother and then put it here. Once the baby listen to the heartbeat,
yeah,
and it's calming. This the beat is the music.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it's
then
the pulse.
Yeah.
The pulse.
The pulse of it.
And then how many people have a private chat with me or DM, direct message oh my God, how your music is prevent me from a suicide, something like that. I don't think what song, and then it's touching me and then realize that, oh my God, I just want to make a fun song, but instead it's turned into a mantra that become someone soundtrack of life, and then I do too. So many have a bad day, and then I just, what is my mood today?
It takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, or I have to go to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, what a shitty life. And then, and I play this music, it's oh, fuck, yeah. I'm going to conquer the world. It's this such an ancient energy in the music that can be change the world. And then I still believe in today. Even the music industry is going down, I still have this faith in me. It's I'm in a band, something cool to do. I also doing something else, working this, working that. It's instead of the music to pay the bill, because music
As
instrument.
you said, the music industry is not what it was.
Is an expensive tools, and then I want to buy, Gibson Les Paul every year, so and and it's not cheap, and then, but. Playing in a band is always bring me back. This is something real. This is something that meaningful for me and also meaningful for everyone else in the world. Yeah.
It's like a Marshall stack is a form of meditation. Mm-hmm. That sound that comes out of a Marshall stack.
The reverb.
That reverb is cleanse me. That's good sound healing,
Baptism by sound.
That's right.
Baptism by sound. The nirvana, finding that nirvana.
And it's because of that, I believe also in the anthropological side, then I trying to find the theory based on it. And then you can see in religion, the ancient Holy Bible, Hindu Bible, Bhagavad Gita, mean the song of God. Why so many way of the information transfer and then God choose a song?
He has his own genre.
Or relief or picture or sculpture or everything. And then, or Quran, it's a poetic. And then every 5 times in the day, people like, Allah Akbar, Allah. It's a song. It's a music. Right?
Yeah.
And the chanting,
It
everything.
was the first
Why?
message that we were
Yeah.
sending. Yeah.
It means like there is some understanding in the gap of 100 years in the different places that music is the very powerful way to deliver a vibe. So based on that ancient thing,
Yeah.
or calling in Bali, like calling all the ancestor, like, hey ancestor, we have a WhatsApp group meeting here. Spiritual word. And then calling it through music, calling it through something. And I was like, it's multi-dimensional vibe.
Yes, yeah.
And then, yeah, lucky we have that. Lucky we have music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that feeling of reverie. It's reverie, you know, like when you're in a live concert or something. It does have that. It is like we're conjuring the past and conjuring the ancients, you know. And it might have something to do with the drugs you've taken, but you know, like you have that moment of reverie, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're tapping into something primal.
There's a common factor here that I'm noticing, which is rock and roll. I'm not discounting other genres. I love dance music, pop music, hip hop, all of that, but all of us are talking about rock music and about how much that specifically is sending these messages and that we are relating to and that is defining us. An open question, what is it about rock and roll that speaks to us?
Ooh.
The sense of rebellion, I guess. Because rock speaks about topics that other music genres normally probably not. But maybe I'm wrong here. But it has that sense of rebellion against a lot of topics.
It's the rebellion.
It can be government,
yeah.
can be a system, a social system, can be anything. Yeah.
The rebellion and the noise.
But I think it's also sexual. Yeah, so there's a kind of sexy power in rock and roll, you know. I mean, and that's what have always connected to, that fire that's in rock and roll. I mean, whatever, Britney Spears, who cares? You know, like, but I get it. They still talk about
It's a different
sex.
kind of sexy.
They
yeah.
still talk about that stuff, but they do it in a different way. Rock and roll does it in this way that just reaches into your core, you know, and that's why I love it, you know. The refrains, you know, it's physical. I think it's a physical, really physical
But
genre.
if we talk about sex as a theme in punk, in a female punk movement, they talk about a different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They try to define their sexuality in a different way than what the society tells them to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this really attracts me to
Yeah, because of course rock and roll can be very sexist and have that
Yes.
element to it. But you know, you mentioned Sonic Youth. I mean, let's go. You know, I mean, that they were critiquing that male-dominated perception of women as sexual objects.
Exactly.
And that was incredible. You know, she was so inspiring. And Courtney Love as well, you know, however off the track she's gone, you know, but, you know, I mean, so what? She was powerful. You know, I saw her live several times and she was a force,
Yeah.
you know. And that was very inspiring to young women in the 90s. But yeah, of course it can be commercial, you know. But I still think fundamentally it has a richness to it.
Yeah.
You know, the guitars, there's something.
There's a swagger about it
Yeah. And
Yeah.
rock and
There's a lot
roll.
of power.
Sorry, yeah,
and the power.
the power. And also rock and roll, it's like specifically with punk rock, yeah?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a umami, like a MSG, like a monosodium glutamate. So this kind like a anything that you
food
put on it,
metaphors,
like
I love
this is
this.
like an attitude, yeah. Attitude, like you play jazz,
Yeah.
good jazz player. Okay, you good musician. But when you add like a rock and roll or punk rock attitude in it, oh, you cool musician.
Yeah.
So it just has like add the richness on it, you know. And then any genre that you play, if you put this kind of attitude, it's become cool. So it's good cool, you know. So
Rock
So-
and roll is cool.
Yeah,
That is
cool.
Yep.
so and like the sexy thing, like it's beat, good, groove. You know, it's cool. So it's like the analogy, maybe like if you play a good music, a good beat, like a poof, chika, poof. So that's why funk is cool, because have the attitude in it, like the sexy attitude. Poof, chika, poof, chika, poof, chika. It's like a sexy
A swag.
person
Yeah.
move,
The
right?
rock and roll
1,
walk.
2, 1, 2. But when groove is her fat moving. So it's I mean it's like adding
It's
the
all the jiggle.
sexiness.
Yeah.
It's only the jiggles.
Yeah. So it's beat okay, groove is woo. You know.
Love
so
it.
good is good, but
Did
cool
someone write
is-
that down?
All right.
awesome.
I
So
love this.
It's
We figured
umami,
out-
umami in the food.
Rock and roll is umami.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We've got that. We've got a couple. I'll do one more question and then we'll hand over to the audience. The final question I've got, it's both for Meita and Sally. What I love about reading both of your books and learning about both of your journeys and careers is that while your experiences and your worlds are so different, your stories are both those of young women growing up and rebelling in the name of rock. You made sacrifices, you risked a lot, but in doing so you found what defines you, you found a life calling, you found a career. What were some of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome? How did you tackle them to get to the place that we are, the place where we're sitting now? Meita?
Lack of support. There's a huge lack of support, and it's very different.
Your mind.
Check. Yeah. Hello? Yeah. So, because, I came from Indonesia, and it's quite conservative. So the lack of support is massive.
Yeah.
There's no support from your environment, from your friends, from your family, from your schoolmates, they all look at it as if you're crazy. So that's probably one of the hardest. And that's where I owed my father that he was a silent supporter. My mom was
That secret photo of him in the band
Yeah,
that he
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
want you
yeah,
to
yeah.
know about.
but he was never angry. I call him a silent supporter, and without him, I probably wouldn't, manage to overcome the hurdles. Yeah.
Thank you. Sally?
Well, I think for me it was being working class and being poor, basically. We didn't have a lot of money, and I think that's why for a lot of suburban kids, the 90s music really took hold, because a lot of kids who were not working class who got into it, of course, but there was a working class ideology in it. And for me, that gave me strength and courage and persistence, so, this is a struggle, but like, keep going. Keep going, keep fighting, and a lot of my heroes instilled that in me, whether that's musicians or sports stars or, to keep chasing and revel in the community that you had, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. This has been a really, really incredible discussion.
Thank you.
One that we'll
Thank
have
you.
to continue soon.
Well, you're going to come and see him play tonight, yeah?
Yes.
But not full band.
Not the full
actually.
band,
I bring
but-
my daughter to play with me.
Ruby and his
Hopefully
daughter
she's
are
not
playing.
tired from the Halloween party.
See you on the dance floor.
Yes. So we need you to.
We're going to open it up to the audience now. Would anyone like to come up and ask a question? I'm not sure if there's a microphone anywhere. Oh, we've got one coming up at the back. We have a question at the front here.
Just here.
We have the microphone
It's coming.
here.
As an 11-year-old who plays violin, like, what's advice that'll make you a better musician besides perseverance and practice?
Who wants to take that one?
I don't- so many X Factor, lucky, and, yeah, and actually, musician is like we as the ideal artists, or we see music also is not just a hobby but also as a business. So it's like by combining making a good product and understand if we thinking like this is an industry, yeah, we going serious, the music is our career, that we also learn how the business work. So it's
So a lot for an
combining.
11-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you start early, it's become better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like in Bali, okay, because I'm Balinese, I believe like a 3 factor in any project that everyone can implement it in their hobby, anything, sport, music, politician, academy, anything. So it's like, it's called Triguna, like Kama, Guna, Arta. So Kama is like you do what you love and love what you do. You do it because you love. You do music, you do violin because you love it. So you're not gonna stop because that's your passion.
Yeah.
And the third that always people thinking is like against our idealism is the business side, Arta. It's like if we sell ourselves to the industry, then mean you lose our,
You sell out.
the mojo, right?
Yeah.
You sell out. And then this is 2 things that always people make it separated. But there is actually one glue in the middle who can bind it together. It's called creativity. It's guna. Means like you always keep creativity. Sometimes you got it as an idea, but also it also can be absorbed by open your eyes, open your reference, listen many things. Even like your classical player, you can listen to metal, many genre as possible, film, anything. So by the creativity guna as an artist, in my analogy, we are artists, we not create anything. Actually, we like a mirror. Everything is already in the universe. We just mirror like a reflector, get everything, and then reflect back to the universe. So more you open to the world, open mind, then more you can reflect to the world. So this have to be these 3. Idealism, you love what you do what you love. Be creative, never tired. You got any idea, you record it right away in the handphone, so because the idea not coming twice. And then listen like how you make the cool cover album, so it's pop up from many thousand other album in the store. And then do something that stealing, like a Picasso say, not copying but stealing. That's also part of the creativism. And understand how the business works, so you're not broken heart when it's getting serious. That music is also a cruel
Just those
industry.
easy steps. Yeah.
Did you get all that?
But this is a Bali ideology that I learned.
Yeah.
And it can be implemented.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you play violin, if you play classical music, I grew up, listening to rock and roll.
What's your name?
Lana.
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 Yes.
So are you now studying to become a violinist? You study violin.
Yeah.
Since what age?
I actually started like last year.
Last year. Okay, I think it's really wonderful that you have a parent that supports you and give you that music education, which I probably didn't have when I grew up.
Yeah.
I was your age because I wasn't allowed to. So this is wonderful. But yeah, learn the basic and the craft of violin, and when you think that you know enough of the basics, then get creative. I agree with what Robi said. Don't get stuck in that specific genre that you're studying right now.
I don't think you have to be perfect.
To different genres.
Because perfection is not cool. Yeah? Make mistakes.
Yeah.
Make mistakes, and mistakes are fine. Mistakes create beauty. Yeah?
And then find out
It's not about
other
being perfect.
creativity, about other genres, like what Robi said, metal, grunge, punk, whatever. And then maybe your mind will be open and you will get into your own music.
Having
You
an
can
understanding
create
of
your
one kind of
own-
music can open you
your
up to
own
understanding
style.
more kinds
And
of
also,
music.
one more thing is to hang out with a lot of musicians. That will help. Yes.
Do you mind if I ask like another question?
Yeah, of
Go
course.
ahead.
No, I don't mind, no.
Okay, so I kind of have like a band, and the content is like punk, kind of. But then,
Sick.
Fantastic.
but then
What's your band called?
I haven't got like a specific name yet because like it's kind of new. So like,
We can workshop this.
I think we already are.
but then like my band is like always constantly finding of like what song we're gonna play. They're, like, cause like we have like, cause like sometimes we have like 20 options of like songs to play, but then they're like no, and then they got like really mad, and then end up like.
So you become Oasis.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe is the key is to find balance in between the voices in the band, because you know nowadays you can't be a leader of the band nowadays. There's a lot of democracy in the band, so everybody needs to be satisfied, you know. So you have to compromise. So maybe you play one song that the bassist want, and one song that the guitarist want, and one song. And then hopefully along the way, you will be able to create your own music. And that's when the voices stops and everybody's into one direction, I have to say. When you start to make your own music, then that's when it's all gonna be working out in one, as a unity in the band, yes. But yeah, you have to start with playing covers. Usually we start with playing covers, right?
Everyone has their own idol.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, sorry.
We ended up recreating like Old MacDonald's had a farm.
That's cool. Why not? That's different.
Yeah, but like in a punk version thing, and it's so weird.
No, it's not.
When are you playing?
No, it's not. No.
Are you
Pardon?
playing tonight?
No.
Can you put her on stage tonight?
If you bring your violin, of course.
Yeah!
Were there any other questions?
I think we had a question here. Over here.
Oh, we have
It's
a couple
everywhere.
at the back there. Oh,
The one with the cute dog with the bag.
Hello. Like in the 60s, from that era, we had like, music started revolutions. It changed the establishment. It stopped people dead, politicians destroying the earth. Writers about music had a really important job in those days.
so you mind talking a bit?
Sorry.
Hold it up, yeah.
Writers
Very rock and
have-
roll, holding it to the side like that.
Speaking to the mic.
They had a really important job to speak the voice of the musicians when their music wasn't allowed to get out. I feel that that's happening again. We're at the time where we're close to World War III, and there's not one musician out there saying anything about it, doing anything about
I
it.
disagree.
But not that's
I
globally
disagree. I mean,
noticed.
look at Pussy Riot in Russia. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we
I
don't
mean-
hear about it. That's the problem.
Yes, you do hear about it. I hear about it. Everyone knows Pussy
Yeah.
Riot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on.
But-
They were jailed.
No, I know. I have heard of these people.
Yeah, so
Um,
I think people are still pushing back.
Yeah.
It's just getting more difficult to do so. And I don't believe the 60s revolution worked. I think it was a thing that rolled up and rolled back. I mean, Hunter S. Thompson says you can still see the high water line as somewhere off Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they did not end the establishment in the 60s. They certainly put up a good fight, but I don't think that you can say that it's not continuing. And that, of course, there's a lot of shit out there, and there's a lot of horrible music that's about nothing, you know, but there are still people pushing back.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And you were saying that it's an industry that's dying out to write about things. And I guess what I wanted to say is, do you see that happening again as some kind of revolt coming from music to push back against global issues?
Yeah.
So that unite the people.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening? Is it going to come, or
Yeah, I mean, that's what
do we all
Robi
die on the
and
wasteland?
Navicula are doing at the moment.
Yeah, for the percentage, like how many musicians pick that one, I agree, it's not so many.
Yeah.
But there is some effort from any community. And actually, you can listen to we have a podcast in Spotify and then in iTunes and Apple Podcasts talking about this one also. It's called Soundtrack of Resistance. So it's made by me and my friends Ewa from the Copernic. So yeah, it's going on the book soon, next year, with the Gramedia, hopefully. Yeah, we're still making it.
Great.
And then, yeah, Soundtrack of Resistance. So it's about talking, but it's like in the Indonesia scope. And I believe like in every region, every country has their this kind of community that doing that one. And then in my band, Navicula is like doing it for 26 years already. And then gaining a community. But maybe the way changed, like during the 90s, we still have this keep spirit like a DIY, do it yourself. But now because the world is getting more collaborative, so this is the era of collaboration. Like now it's do it together. So yeah, it's like the book of Mitka White, like at the end of protest release, and then everybody changing the strategy is more collaborative. But actually the spirit is the same still. How to amplify this global issue right now. It's pretty tough because we're doing this resistance and also the opposite also doing the resistance with the more capital involved, everything. For what we're trying to push is like, hey, it's time like a stop blaming thing, like because everyone is part of the problem. So the only change that we can do if government, corporate, and we are the people, community, have to be sit together. We already we all fucked up. So we have to collaborate our potential now, what we can do. And then if these three not sitting together, the change is not gonna happen because it's too integrated.
Yeah.
So now how is this global understanding, what we can do? The world now, all the investment, you know, the World Bank investment, everything, the company, the corporate invest so many infrastructure, development, economy in the name of the prosperity, but the damage is our environment, right? It's like going to the wrong direction. Yeah. So how this kind of investment now, if we agree about the balance between profit, people, and planet, how all the investment in the world, same amount, like all the investment for the planet destruction is going for the planet, for the artists, for the effort, for the musician that saying this campaign awareness for the to make to save the world and our species. So that's why the company has their own corporate CSR, but it's still small. We want same all the investment that they already spent for the world development and creating the world problem is same amount for the art that doing this.
The fight is still going ahead.
Yeah, if we agree, there should be a balance.
Yeah.
So
I think
check.
And I think also you don't see the players, the bands or the singers that is talking about these global issues on Billboard Top 100 or MTV. You have to go deeper because these sort of resistant music came usually from the underground music scene. So you need to be more, diligent in looking for these talents because you won't see them on MTV. You won't see them on mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we try to going mainstream.
We will.
We try, but need all your support, need all the media,
exactly.
need the cover, need the people to support.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but we try to.
Yeah.
Because the underground is the best. Yeah.
I'd love to continue this conversation, but there was a sign at the back saying that time is out, so we're going to have to wrap up now.
Good music. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Meita, Robi, and Sally.
But we can connect. We can connect. You know.
We can connect.
Once
after
you
this,
see
absolutely.
when you see the ants on the soil, you can so many ants. But you need to see one ant first, and then.
Thanks, everybody.
Great way to leave it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lauren.